Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon in the sign of Virgo taking place on the 23rd of August 2025. This is also my soul sister's birthday, so I would like to wish her a very happy solar return. This new moon is quite special from a number of different reasons, sorry. One of it is that it takes place at the very beginning of its sign, so at 0 degrees, and that's just like the 29 degree in a sense of importance, and it is critical. Of course, where 29 is critical, much more for endings, termination, something reaching its culmination, many times tension, many times something that needs to be seen, so a shadowy energy. The zero degree is critical in the sense that whatever has to happen to open something, to start something, an initiation, creation, a new seed, and of course, that's also typical to any new moon. And the other reason why this is quite powerful, it's because in a way it opens eclipse season. This new moon itself is not an eclipse, but the full moon, and on the 21st of September, so next month, we are gonna have a 29 degrees, so energetic solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. So the beginning and the end highlighted. So this opens the door for that, or sets the stage, or one way or another it does work into that. So that means that we may not have full comprehension, full maybe understanding of whatever this new moon wishes to, well, initiate, start, evoke in our lives. But we may have much more understanding towards September, the middle of September, because this is one of those energies where usually a new moon, well, it does depend on us, our input, well, of course, it really depends on the sign it would take place in, any relevant aspects, but usually, generally speaking, um, a new moon needs some kind of contribution from us. So that's where the fated element is also a choice or something that we input subjectively from us. So we determine the course of events, really. You know what I mean? Really, it's us. This one, however, well, one of its major aspects, and this aspect is very precise as well, is the square, so an aspect of tension with Uranus from fellow mutable sign Gemini and fellow mercurial sign Gemini. So this Uranus brings the element of surprise. This Uranus may bring the element that which really does not depend on us. It just shows up, and what depends on us is how we react, what we think of it, what we make of it, what we, well, label it as Virgo, right? Etc., etc. So, this energy, whatever is being dished out, will need a good contemplation or a good, no, brainstorming to be clear to us what is where life is inviting us in a certain way to, well, Virgo, the specifics of Virgo, change things around or adapt to certain things. May that be daily routine, health, what we call work, because what we call work matters. Not everyone has a like a job type of work. Some people are, I don't know, self-employed. Other people's work is work to them and service in a certain way, but maybe it won't seem that way to society. So that's why it's really important what work and daily routine and service means for us personally, because many times, sorry, the service element in our lives is where we are the beneficiaries. For example, that's why Virgo is a strong medical sign, one of those signs that rules the medical world, influences greatly the medical world, along with, of course, Scorpio and Pisces, because the Virgo Pisces axis is a health axis on its own, and then their symbolism. Virgo, for example, rules everything microscopic, so it's linked to the gut biome, or how you call that. Sorry. It is linked to microorganisms, the biosphere, but the micro part. I don't know how to. I think you got what I wanted to say here. Where Pisces is, for example, blood chemistry, the humors within us, but that's water really, the hormones, pheromone, any mones. So that's ruled by Pisces, but also Scorpio. Scorpio is the world of pharmaceutics, medicine, substances that alter this or that, drugs. But when I say drugs, drugs in the sense of, medicinal type of things, because other type of drugs are more Pisces rather than, well, anyway, it's shared, if you know what I mean, the rulership. So we are gonna be one way or another working on one of the themes earlier mentioned, because Virgo has a lot to do with those. Virgo is the either the professional or the figuring out part, the trial and error part, the routine, well, when you think of Virgo, always think of the path of the monk, where when a monk first joins the monastery life, or I don't know how, the service, because Virgo is service, well, they don't end up straight away in the theological and theurgical and all of that part, but rather the very non-spiritual, hard, dirty, hard work. Cleaning is also very Virgo and Scorpio mix. The act of cleaning and cleansing and restoring. But what I want to say is that that's what they get for at least 4 years. But those 4 years are the true exam, because that is what will, uh, in a way, answer the aspirant monk that if that life is for them or not. Because beforehand, really, one can't know for sure. One can still only guess, even if there's a calling towards that. How many of us have not been called to, I don't know, certain things in life? For example, artistic expression is a very common, and yet it's not that much part of our repertoire, but we have a love and a certain weird calling for it. Well, that can very well mean that it was a big part of our journeys, identity, etc. in a previous existence. So there's a soul remembrance. So of course it it feels like love and passion, but maybe in this incarnation, it's just an addition. It's just a like a trophy that you have. So of course, from time to time, you take it out and you immerse back into it like a nostalgic moment. For other people, still, you never know why when it might come in very handy, and it maybe gets to be their main source of income, life. And this is Virgo. Exactly Virgo. That's why I said these examples, because Virgo adapts. A skill, a talent, a know-how, or something, an affinity for something. Sometimes it may just remain that and it's absolutely fine. Okay, no problem at all. As long as you dip into it from time to time. Other times in life, it may become a main support for your life, basically. Because you chose that. Because you could choose it. Because it was wise to choose it. Because it was a valid option. It may not seem all that fated. However, does it need to be? Because the fate element is already that you have a talent without really needing to work on it, but rather remember it or practice it. Give it some. So, why am I saying all of this? It may very well be part of this new moon experience in Virgo for many of us, because the square with Uranus brings an element of unexpected, an element of surprise, an element of unusual, maybe an element of greater discomfort. It may be us personally, or it may be someone very important in our lives, the Gemini energy, the twin. Many times the twin doesn't necessarily reflect our feelings as a brother sister. Many times the Gemini is our partner, life partner, because of sharing everything, even the responsibilities, burdens, decisions, choices. So that part of a relationship is actually like fraternal, regardless of the nature of the relationship. You're besides romantic partner, well, you're also colleagues, house partner, you're a lot, right? So this side of relationships may trigger because something comes very likely from the external. It's not bound in stone, it may be internal, because ultimately Uranus and Gemini may represent, along with Virgo, so the mercurial energy together, epiphany. You are the volcano, let's say. You are the quantum anomaly. Something sparks up within you and you get to work. And you'll see where you'll end up, where that work, Virgo, research, study, basically going on a path. In tarot, in tarot, the Virgo energy, right, is depicted as the hermit. So on a path of discovery, many times only you know what you're doing, even when you don't, but it still do. Virgo is God intelligence. Virgo is common sense, but so is Gemini. So that's why this is a strong reality check energy as well. I can't even say not of the Saturnian type, because Saturn is in the picture. But a bit more about that just a bit later on. Usually, Gemini and Virgo don't need to be the Saturnian type of reality check, because they can very well be Eureka. I face the facts. Life doesn't need to get me to the hardships because I see it clearly. I see that let's say a path or a course of events clearly leads to X outcome. So the intelligence and the Virgo expression of the energy, the reality of it. And Virgo is that sign which really loves working with reality. Virgo is that sign which doesn't take bad news necessarily with fear and paranoia and all of that. Okay, that can be there a little bit as an emotional package. But Virgo still loves knowing the bad news because they can prepare, they can adapt, they can at least start taking action. So that's why Virgo has a very strong realistic nature to it, and that's good. However, the what we mustn't do with this energy, especially that again Saturn's involved, is make what reality is showing the boss of us. Like get depressed, pessimistic, it's all over, hopeless, or to adapt in with a bad attitude, to adapt with a victim mentality. Because that's when we are not gonna harvest anything nice. Around this new moon, there's a trine between Jupiter in Cancer and Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. I know a trine is a supremely harmonious energy of flow and easiness, but the nature of these energies may represent, well, the victim, right? The victim has it easy. All you need to do is become a victim and all good. Yes, absolutely, there might, why not be immediate rewards attached to that? However, Jupiter is also the wisdom of it, in measure, or not at all. The wisdom of choosing. Because not being the victim may represent or will represent the harder path. But the harder path has different rewards at the end. A different treasure chest, even if it's not accessible immediately. So many times the hard path has its rewards. But again, the Uranus new moon square does mean, but the Gemini side of the energy, measure. Because hard doesn't mean impossible or ultra hard or needlessly hard. Knowing thyself, knowing how much you can take, knowing your own difficulty difficulty settings. If it's genuinely, authentically, because that's Uranus, authenticity, has to be easy because of reasons. It has to be easy, that self-honesty, no shame. But cheating yourself really is not gonna be fruitful, fruit-bearing. So it's very, very important to get the balances right here. And getting the balances right will also be the key theme in the upcoming 21st September eclipse energy. So, okay. Now let's move on to what Saturn or how Saturn is involved in the picture. Because on one hand, Saturn holds a sextile with Uranus, along with Neptune, of course. When I say Saturn, imagine Neptune being there along with him. Like Neptune being more like a cloak or a shadowy companion or mist, where you have a picture, just put mist in it and that's Neptune. It doesn't matter how the specifics, just put the mist in and that's really Neptune. So they hold a quincunx to this new moon, but then again, Pluto holds the quincunx to this new moon, which makes it a finger of God. So the square at Uranus and the quincunx says make this new moon very not susceptible to prediction because on one hand it's very personal. It really depends on your nitty-gritty, your fine details, the little devil inside of you even. The little devil meaning that little control freak which likes details, the curiosity, how further you go until your knowledge, sense, thirst is satisfied, that part of you. So we can't leave that out. That's why it's very, very specific to you and specific to your now. Because Uranus brings the now. Uranus brings, okay, Uranus will go retrograde. Not when will, when is Uranus in September? Something like that, 1st of September. I'm not sure about that. So, but soon Uranus goes retrograde. So it will return again here. It will, that's the truth. It will return again. So whatever is cooked up right now may reverberate around, I do believe, next year or something like that. It may not be a final thing. That's why but it still is new and it still is something that is very rooted in the now. However, the quincunx and the finger of God, the now itself may be rooted in the past couple of months, years, Saturn, Neptune retrograde, Pluto himself. Let me just make, yeah, still Pluto retrograde himself. So the past is somehow there, but indirectly. Maybe this Saturn, again, I can't help but mention retrograde, yeah, dipping back into Pisces for the final time, um, may bring some resources, inner resources, outer resources, proper resources, or psychological, spiritual, because it's dipping back into Pisces, right? Karmic rewards, help, or this Saturn may bring something to the table. And Pluto, there's some potential in it, power in it, or a momentum in it, or it feels fated. And you make a decision and you work on it as you go. That's very much how I see this Virgo new moon playing out. Of course, on the world stage, collectively speaking, Uranus is, especially in Gemini, very revolutionary energy, like protests, like strikes. Virgo again is service, working people, offering a type of service again. So there's disruptions. There might be disruptions in the healthcare industry, doctors, nurses, stuff like that. But any type of service, so labor, HR, human resource people basically working. So there might be something there, a kind of uprising or demanding rights. Remember Jupiter is the law, and in Cancer it's protective. It has to serve the community, the local people, power of the people. And then the finger of God with Saturn and Pluto, there's a situation that demands adaptation, a situation that may suddenly, radically change things around, and then something like service or Virgo, the routines, how things are structured and organized for the sake of functioning. But we can't ignore Saturn. Rules, traditions are different from one day to the other. Adaptation to that. So, again, Pluto might represent that something ends quickly that used to be part of our lives. I do very much hope that this is like a war. Maybe peace, sudden peace, unexpected, well, resolution to it one way or another. And that changes things around. So something fated might happen on the world stage that suddenly changes things and makes an industry or one area of our lives, even collectively, adapt to it. I really hope that it isn't like a healthcare crisis or another virus wave or anything like that. Because Virgo, it can be possible, especially with Uranus. Things spread. Uranus spreading. Of course, with Gemini, it's much more likely that it's about news, communication, internet technology, or some kind of alternative means. But news and information is really haywire everywhere, spreading. Communication is on big time. But we cannot forget again the nice part of this energy where that very same Uranus still holds the trine with Pluto. So that's good. That's especially that this is collective energy because these are two big planets. So their trine is really good. Technology works, it does its job. There's improvement, there's innovation, power of the people, etc., etc., etc. So there's that part which we cannot ignore, even though, as I said, the new moon is gonna have tension, unexpected discomfort, uprising, whatever that means attached to it. Um, we cannot forget the invisible planets here because Uranus is not alone. Uranus is with Sedna, so the higher octave of Ceres, the goddess of the deep. She represents our transformation. Okay, similar to Pluto, but her symbolism has much more depth. Wounds, injustice, the victim, the wounding of the divine feminine, the underdog, oppression, etc., etc. So Sedna is a power that is gained from all of that, transforming the dark, transforming the pain, the suffering, the victim into something powerful, something, well, she herself is transformed into a sea goddess, so something divine, something that ultimately doesn't just transform our journeys and us, but the collective itself. So yes, Uranus conjunct Sedna, and the new moon itself is also conjunct a rather interesting trans-Neptunian object, which is named Sila Nunam. I'm not sure how if I'm pronouncing this correctly, because this is two deities from the Inuit people. Um, Sila is a symbol for the air, for the sky, a masculine, like the sky god basically. Where Nunam is, of course, the earth fertility goddess. So they form a pair, a creational pair. So very, how should I say, specific almost to Virgo, the symbolism of Virgo, the nature of Virgo, and the creational energy of Virgo, the feminine side of Virgo. And this trans-Neptunian object does suggest to me that, of course, there is some kind of crisis, something unexpected, but the solutions that are born from it or to solve it, to tackle it, to are gonna be more valuable, more groundbreaking, Uranus, more ingenious and revolutionary. And this can very well be in a scientific or any sense you want, than we could have ever imagined. So, something really positive, something very valuable or powerful in a solution sense is born out of this, let's say, crisis. Because after all, zero is also crisis degree. And any eclipse, okay, this is not an eclipse yet, but it opens the eclipse season. Well, any eclipse is a crisis of some kind, or can be interpreted as a crisis. So I find this new moon very powerful in this sense. And last but not least, I would like to say speak about the Sabian symbol of 1 degrees of Virgo. It just says a man's head. Of course, in the context of a painting. Uh, and this is symbolic in very many ways. Well, on one hand, the head is where the control panel lies of to our physical being, if you know what I mean. The head is where the processor is. So it is at the buttons. And that's very specific to the Virgo energy in the sense that discernment, eyes and senses, well, the brain processes the information. Virgo processes the information, what it means in detail. Because Gemini already, and again, specifically in the sky, the square with Uranus. Gemini says the immediate interpretation. Virgo is, the lab, the laboratory. When Virgo can be seen like, when the dog sniffs and takes a couple of moments to analyze, to actually determine what the smell says. That's Virgo, the laboratory inside the dog's nose. It dissects, it labels, it discernment. So very much the head. But then the head is also significant in another way where it's the identity of the person. You can say so much just by looking at the head of a person. You will see any markings, age, you can mimicry, hairstyle, any jewelry or piercings. You can say a lot. And of course, there's the highest possible interpretation where the eyes, of course, eyes are in the head, are the mirror of the soul. So Virgo Pisces axis. But of course, the head is also like a testament of the person's evolution in life, what life has done to the person. But at the end of the day, it's the decision center, especially in a Virgo sense. The down to earth real life, do I go left, right? Is this berry, fruit good for me or poisonous, right? The mushroom, do I pick it or do I leave it? Very, very important. So, even the Sabian symbol suggests that there is some kind of big decision or big change, big transformation, big adaptation coming from this new moon. So the best way is going with the flow, taking each day as it comes, because this Uranus, as I said, the square is telling us along with the finger of God that it may be even ridiculous to try to predict, try to expect, try to anything. Not just let's wait and see what happens, where life takes us, what opportunities arise, what situations arise, either in our lives personally or in the life of someone so close that it can still feel like personal. Not doing it for the self, doing it for the wife, husband, child. It's the same as doing it for the self. So let's see what happens. Also, this energy, before I don't forget, is really good for, lucrative purposes, projects, job to do, especially when you need to change things around, or especially when you have needs that you cannot fulfill the typical way, then you find alternatives and maybe there's treasure in that. It can be literally, maybe let's say you need a tool or something like that for your work. To expend, you don't have enough money to expenses to buy the typical way. You can either go second hand, or let's say even that is off limits. Go to the tip, ask around. Maybe tomorrow you're gifted one, but one which has a story, or this type of energy is very likely. So I would really say stay open to possibilities, stay open to the new, stay open to the unusual. If something breaks down in life, don't panic, because it is definitely opening a gateway to somewhere else. It can be a medical energy, why not? Something unexpected happens. And let's say you're single. um, okay, it's bad news because you need a medical attention. However, the finger of God, maybe the medical professional is your future something. So, let the energy work here. That's what I can advise. So thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye for now.